Hello everyone, my name is Aaron Woodman. I want to welcome you to my YouTube channel. In this video, we are going to talk about the Reconstruction Era in terms of how this was a time to integrate Black people into American society after the Civil War. This was important because it was the first major instance of increasing a sense of belonging for Black people. Let's talk about it. When the Civil War ended, slavery ended along with it, and all of America's 4 million enslaved people were suddenly free. But what were these freedmen? Were they citizens or something else? To help prepare freed, formerly enslaved people for life as ordinary Americans, many church and abolitionist groups sent teachers, nurses, and counselors of every sort, both Black and white, to the South. Other Northerners came to profit from the war. They were called carpetbaggers for the small bags hung on poles that they supposedly used to carry meager belongings in their rush to loot the South. They were loathed by Southerners as much as freed formerly enslaved people. Andrew Johnson, a Democrat from Tennessee, was deeply racist and determined to allow the defeated South to return to white rule. This was because he was sympathetic to the Southerners. At the time, Democrats were the party of white supremacy. Southern state governments, dominated by former Confederates, passed laws known as Black Codes that required African Americans to work under the same horrible conditions as before the war. Under the Black Codes, freedmen and their families had no rights and could be brutalized with no risk to white landowners and businessmen. There was the proposed Civil Rights Act of 1866, where the legislators said, quote, freedmen must be able to buy land, work for themselves, enter into freely negotiated contracts, and move from place to place if they want to, unquote. A group of congressmen called the Radical Republicans insisted that the nation had a moral obligation to end the Black Codes and integrate freed slaves fully into society as American citizens. As part of that effort, the Radical Republicans forced through Congress the first Civil Rights Act in the nation's history and overrode Andrew Johnson's veto to make it law. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 made, quote, all persons born in the United States citizens of the United States, unquote, except Native Americans, who were still considered subjects of their various tribes and not under the jurisdiction of the United States government. The Civil Rights Act of 1866 seemed to overrule the Dred Scott decision, since Taney had insisted that no Black person, enslaved or free, could become a citizen. But Taney had died in 1864 and had been replaced by Abraham Lincoln's choice, Salmon P. Chase. Taney's decision was already so discredited that no one brought it up. However, the Radical Republicans still had concerns that if the Democrats took power, they would hand everything back to the rebels and they would repeal the Civil Rights Act. They believed it would be slavery all over again, just this time without the name, and Andrew Johnson would be right there to hand the plantation owners their whips. The Radical Republicans believed the only way to protect freedmen's rights was to put them in the Constitution to make all of these things guaranteed civil rights. So, the 14th Amendment was created. The first section, written by John Bingham of Ohio, guaranteed that every person born in the United States would be a United States citizen, no matter what their color or their religion, whether their parents were citizens or not. It also said that every person, not just citizens, would be guaranteed due process of law and equal protection of the laws. The first section of the 14th Amendment would become one of the most controversial passages in the Constitution and spawn a series of highly charged cases unique in American history. Everything from voter registration to limits on working hours to abortion rights to the rights of an accused person, etc. Still, getting the 14th Amendment ratified was not easy. Andrew Johnson's white-dominated Southern state governments refused, leaving the measure well short of the 3/4 of the states needed. With only white people voting, that was not likely to change. If the Radical Republicans could not change their minds, they would have to change their governments. Radical Republicans forced through a series of laws known as Reconstruction Acts, each time overriding Andrew Johnson's veto, that protected Black people and sent the army south to enforce these laws. They said, quote, we require that states of the old Confederacy elect new governments, with freedmen voting in those elections, and then draft new constitutions. The new integrated state legislatures would then need to ratify the 14th Amendment in order to be readmitted to the Union, unquote. With black men voting for the first time, the South was remade. The new state constitutions guaranteed equal rights, and the Reconstruction governments went on to ratify the 14th Amendment. At the same time, though, the fight was not over. Those who believed in equal rights understood that citizenship is hollow unless the right to vote is unable to be attacked. So, in 1870, we got the 15th Amendment ratified. It states, quote, "The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude," unquote. Almost 500,000 black men would register to vote. Their participation changed the face of American democracy, perhaps making the government for the first time the voice of the male people, since women could not vote yet. More than 2,000 black men were elected to public office. Most were local officials, like postmasters, but 16 African Americans served in Congress. Another PBS pinchback served briefly as governor in Louisiana. 6 served as lieutenant governors, 2 as superintendents of education, and 8 as secretaries of state. So, as we can see, there was a lot of effort and commitment by radical Republicans to ensure black people were not just integrated into American society, but also ensure they belonged in civic life. By ratifying the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, those were major efforts to ensure those civil rights would be enshrined in the Constitution and not be easily taken away, since it is more difficult to repeal an amendment from the Constitution than it is to simply repeal a regular legislation. Also, it is notable that the radical Republicans used tactics to get southern states to accept these amendments by saying they would not be part of the Union unless they ratified them. Since the Civil War was deadly already, it was not in the best interest of the southern states to remain out of the Union. So they had to ratify the amendments. Based on this so far, we know the fight has to be there to expand and protect black people's civil rights so they can belong in the country. But no matter what, the white supremacists in the South did not automatically change their minds on how they perceived black people. In fact, they were still determined to drive African Americans out of the political process, no matter what it took. In the next video, we will talk about how they attempted to make the political process more exclusive and unwelcoming for black people by limiting their voting and civil rights. Until then, please like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and turn on the post notifications so you will be notified when I post my next video. I appreciate your support. Remember, you are powerful, you are capable, and you are the changemaker our society needs. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you soon.